I'm joined by Tim Miller from Cavendish Superannuation. Good on you, Tim.
Cheers, Andrew.
Trust structures
Yes.
and property. We had a chat earlier and you're saying there's more than one way to skin a cat.
That's it.
So there's more than one way for a fund to hold property as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's
So my wife said to me 2 years ago, with our self-managed super, we should have a flat or house or something.
Yep.
And I went, that's a great idea.
She did. Yep.
And then so look at each other, and then a year later, she goes, we should. And I went, we should. And then I said I was coming up to SPAA, and she goes, we should. We haven't done anything because it just seems too hard to do.
That's right.
Is it too hard to do?
It sounds familiar. It sounds like my wife too, but
Okay.
it's not too hard to do. It's a matter of identifying what you want to do. You
Okay.
know, do you want a flat? Do you want to bring the business in? Then when you know what you actually want to do,
Yep.
you can then look at the best way to do it and the way you can structure it.
Okay, so let's look at first of all what we can actually do.
Yeah.
How? Because the government's definitely made it easier
They have.
to have property in your self-managed super fund.
They have, and that's, I guess, the big key thing. We have to create an investment strategy. Part of that strategy says we have to diversify, or we have to consider diversifying, but then they say you can also buy property.
Okay.
Now, property is a big asset for a lot of people.
Yep.
So they've given us that capability. They set rules about who we can and can't buy it from.
Yep.
So we have to stay within those guidelines, but effectively, it's carte blanche. You can invest in property to whatever degree you choose in the self-managed fund.
Right. So what sort of property can you invest in?
Okay, residential.
Yeah.
Business real property, so commercial property. Overseas, let's not focus there.
Okay. Why not?
Why not? Because you then take in other jurisdictions. So then all of a sudden you're not only applying Australian rules, you've got to determine what the rules are overseas. US is a classic example.
Yeah, but is there any attraction in America where, they've just had that whole jingle mail and, their whole market's gone,
Yep.
splat. But if it's gone splat, then surely there's a point where it's going to come back up. So that must be looking...
Look, and clearly a lot of self-managed super fund trustees think, hey, there's an option,
Yeah.
property in the US.
Yeah.
But trustee responsibilities, prudent decision making, is the copper in the house more expensive or more valuable than the house itself? What are the rules associated with with investing in that? Are you going to get over there? Do you want your fund to pay for you to go to America? Because that's not happening.
Okay.
There's all those sorts of issues to take on board.
All right. So it can be pretty much any sort of property?
Yes.
All right. How difficult is it to actually get that into the system?
Look, it's not all that difficult once you identify the type of property. If it's residential property, you've got to be very careful with the rules. So it's not something that you can say, okay, we own property, we want to transfer it into the fund, because the rules don't allow that if it's residential.
Yep.
And that's where this conversation about trusts can benefit you, because you can look at things like residential property and you can say, well, if we structure it correctly, then in the future we can acquire units in that trust rather than buy the property from ourselves. So that's where the legislation gives us these
Can you explain that for me another way?
Okay.
Because I'm not very smart.
No, that's good. That's good, and that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
It's to be able to say to people that, the law says you can't buy residential property from a related party, from a member of the fund.
Right.
Okay, but what it says is you can buy units in a unit trust, right? And there are certain rules around that. And it just says that as long as the trust follows the same rules that you follow, so the trust hasn't bought that property from a related party, then you can buy those units from yourself. So it gives you the opportunity. It's like the tenants in common is the classic example that we see in a lot of super funds. If you want to buy property tenants in common, yourself and your wife and your super fund, you can do that. But you can never go and then buy that portion from yourself.
Right.
The trust allows you to do that, gives you an opportunity.
So does that mean if my super fund, following all the rules, purchases a flat, for instance, there is a way that one of my children could live in that flat? No.
No. Well, look, there is a way. There's a very small percentage of self-managed super funds that are in excess of $10 million, and then that flat's going to be less than 5%.
Yeah.
No worries. But
that
for
won't
the
be
majority of self-managed funds don't fit that category.
Okay.
So the reality is you're not going to be able to lease the flat to a related party.
Okay. What are the advantages of having property and what are the disadvantages of having property in your trust?
Look, I think one of the advantages that I've always seen is the flexibility of movement. So you can unitize it. So property is an ununitized asset. You have this big lumpy investment, whereas in a trust, you can unitize it. So it gives you that flexibility to move units in and out.
Okay.
If you've got new investors or others wanting to invest within that trust structure.
Okay, how hard is it for you to sell the trust message and a property in trust message at somewhere like SPAA, where, you know, like there's 1,400 people here, there's 1,400 different agendas and advice and people looking for information. So how's your message going?
Look, I think the message is going pretty well. It's an interesting one because of the makeup of the SPAA environment. You have half of the group who come from an accounting background who love trusts. You know, they've been brought up on the trust environment, versus the financial planning side of it, who it's a new experience, and so they're very interested to hear about that opportunity, and then they need to engage with the other parties, the accountants who will help them setting up and run and do the accounting on the trust. So I actually see trusts as the unification tool in the SMSF industry.
Right, so you're the UN.
That's it. That's it.
You're Switzerland, and you're bringing everyone together.
I am the Switzerland of SMSF.
All right, good on you, Tim. Great to chat.
Cheers, Andrew.
Great to meet you.